Maya had been searching for a roommate for 3 months. Living alone in her two-bedroom apartment was getting expensive, and she desperately needed someone to split the rent. She had posted ads everywhere, online classifieds, social media, even put up flyers at the local coffee shop. Most responses were either from people who seemed sketchy or from those who wanted to pay away less than half the rent. Then one day, she got a message that seemed too good to be true. The person introduced themselves as Jordan and said they were looking for a quiet place to stay. They offered to pay 3 months' rent upfront and didn't ask many questions. Maya was thrilled. Finally, someone who seemed responsible and reliable. When they first met at a local cafe, Jordan appeared perfectly normal. They were around Maya's age, dressed simply in dark clothes, and spoke in a polite, almost formal way. Jordan asked basic questions about the apartment. How many rooms, what utilities were included, and whether Maya was okay with someone who kept unusual hours. Maya didn't think much of it. Lots of people worked night shifts or had different sleep schedules. What Maya found refreshing was that Jordan didn't pry into her personal life like other potential roommates had. They didn't ask about her job, her family, or her social life. Jordan simply wanted to know about rent, house rules, and move-in dates. It felt professional and respectful. The day Jordan moved in was surprisingly smooth. They didn't have much stuff, just a few boxes, some electronic equipment, and basic furniture. Maya offered to help carry things upstairs, but Jordan politely declined, saying they preferred to handle their belongings personally. Maya respected that. Some people were particular about their things. The first week living together was peaceful. Jordan was exactly as advertised, quiet, clean, and respectful. They kept their room tidy, never left dishes in the sink, and always cleaned up after themselves. Maya started to think she'd finally found the perfect roommate, but then she began noticing little things that seemed odd. Jordan never seemed to sleep. Maya would go to bed around 11 and wake up around 7, but she could hear Jordan moving around their room throughout the night. Not loud or disruptive sounds, just the gentle shuffling of someone who was awake and active. When Maya asked about it over morning coffee, Jordan explained they had trouble sleeping and preferred to stay busy with quiet activities. Their eating habits were also unusual. Jordan never ordered takeout, never asked to borrow food, and rarely used the kitchen for cooking. When Maya did see them preparing meals, it was always the same things: raw vegetables cut into precise shapes, some kind of grain that looked like quinoa, and these small pills that Jordan claimed were vitamin supplements. Maya had seen health-conscious people before, but Jordan's diet seemed almost scientific in its precision. The electronic equipment in Jordan's room was another curiosity. Maya could hear a soft humming sound that seemed to come from multiple devices. When she asked about it, Jordan explained they worked in data analysis and needed several computers running constantly. It made sense, though Maya had never heard such a consistent, rhythmic humming from regular computers. Jordan's daily routine was like clockwork. They would leave the apartment at exactly the same time each morning and return at the same time each evening. Maya never saw them carry a laptop bag, briefcase, or any work materials. When she casually asked what company Jordan worked for, the answer was always vague, something about environmental research and data collection for government projects. What started to bother Maya was how Jordan seemed to watch everything she did with intense curiosity, not in a creepy way, but like someone who was genuinely fascinated by ordinary activities. When Maya made breakfast, Jordan would observe from the kitchen doorway, taking mental notes of every step. When Maya watched TV, Jordan would sit nearby and study both the screen and Maya's reactions to what was happening. Maya's friends started commenting on Jordan whenever they visited. Her best friend Lisa mentioned that Jordan had an unusual way of walking, almost like they were gliding across the floor instead of taking normal steps. Her coworker Tom said Jordan's handshake felt unusually cold and that they seemed to avoid direct eye contact during conversations. Maya defended Jordan, explaining that some people were just naturally introverted or came from different cultural backgrounds. She didn't want to judge someone for being different, especially when they were such a considerate roommate in every other way. But the small things kept adding up. Maya would come home to find items in her apartment moved slightly, not stolen, or damaged, just repositioned. Her coffee mug might be facing a different direction, or her books might be arranged in a different order. When she mentioned it, Jordan always had logical explanations. Maybe Maya had moved them herself and forgotten, or perhaps they had been bumped while cleaning. Jordan never received any mail, which Maya found strange. Everyone got something: bills, advertisements, packages from online shopping. But the mailbox only ever had Maya's name on envelopes. When she asked about it, Jordan said they used a work address for all correspondence and preferred to keep personal and professional mail separate. Phone calls were another mystery. Maya never heard Jordan talking to anyone. No friends calling to chat, no family checking in, no work calls that most remote workers dealt with regularly. Jordan's phone would occasionally make soft beeping sounds, but Maya never heard actual conversations. The most puzzling thing was how Jordan seemed to know things about the apartment and neighborhood that Maya had never told them. Jordan mentioned that the apartment got the best natural light at exactly 2:30 in the afternoon, something Maya had only figured out after living there for months. They knew which grocery store had the freshest produce and which bus routes were most reliable. Despite claiming to be new to the area, Maya started to wonder if Jordan had somehow researched the apartment extensively before moving in, or if they lived in the neighborhood before. But when she asked about their previous living situation, Jordan's answers were always brief and seemed rehearsed. Despite all these small oddities, Maya genuinely liked having Jordan as a roommate. The apartment felt safer with someone else there. The bills were split fairly, and Jordan never caused any real problems. Maya decided she was probably overthinking things. Everyone had their quirks, and Jordan's strange habits weren't hurting anyone. Little did Maya know that her peaceful living situation was about to change dramatically, and all those small peculiarities she'd been dismissing were actually clues to something much bigger and more extraordinary than she could have ever imagined. After living with Jordan for about a month, Maya started inviting friends over more often. She was proud of how well the roommate situation was working out and wanted to show off her clean, organized apartment, but her friends' reactions to Jordan were not what she expected. The first time her friend Lisa met Jordan, she pulled Maya aside in the kitchen and whispered urgently, "There's something really weird about your roommate," Lisa said, glancing toward the living room where Jordan was sitting. "Did you notice how pale they are? Like, unnaturally pale, and their skin looks almost perfect, no blemishes, no freckles. Nothing." Maya laughed it off. "Some people just have good skin, Lisa. Maybe they use sunscreen religiously or have good genes." But Lisa wasn't convinced. "It's not just that. Watch how they move. They don't make any sound when they walk, and their movements are too smooth. It's like they're floating instead of walking normally." Maya thought Lisa was being dramatic, but she found herself paying more attention to Jordan's movements over the next few days. Lisa was right. Jordan moved with an unusual grace that seemed almost impossible. Their footsteps were completely silent, even on the old wooden floors that creaked under Maya's weight. When Maya's coworker Dave came over to watch a football game, he had his own observations. During halftime, he cornered Maya in the kitchen. "Your roommate is strange, Maya. When I tried to shake their hand, it was ice cold. Not just cool, actually cold. Like they'd been holding ice cubes, and they kept staring at the TV. But not at the game. They were watching the commercials with this intense focus, like they were studying them." Maya had noticed Jordan's fascination with advertisements too. During commercial breaks, Jordan would lean forward and watch with complete concentration, especially during ads for everyday products like laundry detergent or breakfast cereal. Maya had assumed Jordan was just easily entertained, or maybe from a place where these products weren't common. Her friend Kevin visited the following weekend and immediately felt uncomfortable. "There's something off about Jordan," he told Maya. "Privately, when they talk, it sounds like they're reading from a script. Their responses are too perfect, too polite, Real people stumble over words sometimes or use slang. Jordan speaks like they learn English from a textbook. Maya started paying closer attention to Jordan's speech patterns. Kevin was right. Jordan never used contractions like don't or can't. They always said do not and cannot. They never used casual expressions or slang that most people their age would naturally use. Even simple phrases sounded formal and carefully constructed. The electronic humming from Jordan's room was getting louder too. Maya could hear it through the walls, especially at night. It wasn't just one sound anymore. There seemed to be multiple devices creating different pitches and rhythms. Sometimes the humming would stop abruptly for a few minutes, then resume with a different pattern. Maya's electronics started acting strangely around the same time. Her laptop would randomly open programs she'd never seen before, complex applications, with screens full of numbers and symbols that meant nothing to her. When she asked Jordan about it, they suggested it might be a virus and offered to fix it. The next day, her laptop worked perfectly, but Maya noticed several new programs installed that she didn't remember downloading. Her smartphone began behaving oddly too. It would randomly restart in the middle of conversations, or the screen would light up by itself in the middle of the night. Sometimes Maya would find her phone in different locations than where she'd left it. Jordan always seemed genuinely surprised when Maya mentioned these incidents, and would offer helpful suggestions about software updates or technical support. The smart TV in the living room developed its own personality. Channels would change by themselves, usually during the most interesting parts of shows Maya was watching. The volume would adjust randomly, and sometimes the TV would turn on in the early hours of the morning, displaying static or strange geometric patterns. Jordan claimed to know nothing about these malfunctions and even seemed frustrated by them. Maya started keeping a mental list of Jordan's unusual habits. They never seemed to get tired, never yawned, and never appeared to need coffee or energy drinks to stay alert. Their daily routine was so precise it was almost robotic, leaving at exactly 8:23 a.m. and returning at exactly 6:47 p.m. every single day. Jordan never brought home groceries, never ordered food delivery, and never seemed to run out of those strange supplements they took. Maya began wondering where Jordan got their food, and how they managed to maintain such a restrictive diet without ever shopping for ingredients. The bathroom situation was another mystery. Maya rarely saw evidence that Jordan used the bathroom like a normal person. The towels never seemed wet, the soap dispenser never got empty, and there were never any personal care products visible. Maya started to wonder if Jordan somehow used the bathroom only when she wasn't around. One evening, Maya decided to test her growing suspicions. She deliberately left a small piece of tape on her bedroom door before going to work, positioned so it would fall if someone opened the door. When she came home, the tape was gone. Maya confronted Jordan about it, but they seemed genuinely confused and suggested that maybe the tape had just fallen off on its own. Maya's sleep started suffering because of her growing anxiety about Jordan. She would lie awake at night listening to the sounds coming from their room, not just the electronic humming, but also what sounded like muffled conversations. Sometimes she could swear she heard multiple voices, but when she checked, Jordan was always alone. The strange lights under Jordan's door became more frequent and more colorful. Maya would see flashes of blue, green, and sometimes purple light seeping into the hallway. When she asked about it, Jordan explained they were working on projects that required special computer monitors with different color calibrations. Maya's friends stopped wanting to visit the apartment. They all gave different excuses, but Maya could tell they were uncomfortable around Jordan. Lisa finally admitted that Jordan made her feel like she was being studied under a microscope. It's like they're taking notes on everything we do and say, Lisa explained. I feel like a lab experiment when I'm around them. Despite all these red flags, Maya found herself reluctant to confront Jordan directly or ask them to move out. Jordan was still the perfect roommate in practical terms, quiet, clean, and reliable with rent payments. Maya convinced herself that everyone had their quirks and that maybe Jordan was just from a very different background or culture. But deep down, Maya was starting to feel like she was living with someone who wasn't quite human. The thought seemed ridiculous whenever she said it to herself, but the evidence kept piling up. Jordan's behavior was becoming harder and harder to explain with normal reasons. Maya had no idea that her growing suspicions were absolutely correct, and that the strange occurrences in her apartment were about to escalate dramatically. The peaceful coexistence she'd been maintaining with Jordan was about to be shattered in ways she could never have imagined. It was a Thursday evening in late September when everything changed. Maya had been having a particularly stressful week at work, dealing with demanding clients and tight deadlines. All she wanted was to come home, order some Chinese takeout, and binge-watch her favorite show while eating ice cream straight from the container. She dragged herself up the stairs to her apartment, keys jingling as she fumbled with the lock. The hallway felt unusually quiet, and Maya noticed that the familiar electronic humming from Jordan's room seemed louder than usual. She pushed the thought aside, too tired to worry about her roommate's strange habits. As soon as Maya opened the apartment door, Jordan appeared in the hallway. This was unusual. Jordan typically stayed in their room when Maya came home, maybe offering a polite greeting before disappearing again. But tonight, Jordan was standing right there, almost like they'd been waiting by the door. "Maya, we need to talk," Jordan said, their voice carrying an urgency Maya had never heard before. "There are some important things happening with the apartment tonight that you need to know about." Maya dropped her purse and work bag by the door, suddenly feeling more awake. "What kind of things? Is there a problem with the plumbing or electricity?" Jordan began pacing back and forth in the living room, holding what looked like a small handheld device. The device had several blinking lights and made soft beeping sounds. Maya had never seen anything like it before. It didn't look like any electronic gadget she recognized from stores. "It's more complicated than that," Jordan said, stopping to examine the device's screen. "I've been monitoring the energy readings in this building, and tonight there are going to be some fluctuations that could be problematic." Maya stared at Jordan in confusion. "Energy readings? What are you talking about? Are you talking about the electrical system?" Jordan continued pacing, occasionally stopping to point the device at different walls and corners of the room. The beeping sounds would change pitch and frequency depending on where Jordan aimed it. "Not exactly electrical energy. It's more about atmospheric conditions and environmental factors that most people aren't aware of." Maya felt her stress level rising. She'd been looking forward to a relaxing evening, and now Jordan was talking about mysterious energy readings and atmospheric conditions like some kind of scientist or conspiracy theorist. "Jordan, I'm really tired. Can we maybe discuss this tomorrow? I just want to order some food and unwind." But Jordan shook their head firmly. "That's not possible tonight, Maya. The readings indicate that the fluctuations will begin around 10 p.m. and continue until approximately 7 a.m. During that time, it won't be safe for you to be in the common areas of the apartment." Maya felt a chill run down her spine. Something about Jordan's tone and demeanor was completely different from their usual polite, formal manner. There was an intensity and authority in their voice that made Maya feel uneasy. "What do you mean? It won't be safe? Safe from what?" Jordan stopped pacing and looked directly at Maya for the first time since she'd come home. Their eyes seemed brighter than usual, almost reflective in the apartment's lighting. "I can't explain all the details right now, but I need you to trust me. You need to stay in your bedroom from 10 p.m. until 7 a.m. tomorrow morning. I'll make sure you have everything you need: food, water, entertainment." Maya felt her heart start beating faster. "Are you kidding me right now? You can't just tell me I have to stay locked in my bedroom in my own apartment. That's crazy, Jordan." Jordan's expression remained serious and determined. "I understand this seems unreasonable, but I'm trying to protect you. The atmospheric disturbances tonight could be harmful to someone who isn't prepared for them." Maya tried to make sense of what Jordan was saying, but nothing added up. "Atmospheric disturbances? Jordan, you're scaring me. What exactly do you do for work? What kind of environmental research requires monitoring energy readings in our apartment?" Jordan walked over to the window and peered out at the darkening sky. My work involves studying conditions that most people don't encounter in their daily lives. Tonight, my team needs to conduct some tests that will create temporary changes in the local environment. These changes won't affect me, but they could be dangerous for you. Maya felt anger rising alongside her fear. Your team? What team? I've never seen anyone else here. You never have visitors or co-workers over. And now you're telling me that you and some mysterious team are going to do experiments in our apartment. Jordan turned back toward Maya, and she noticed that their skin seemed even paler than usual, almost luminescent in the dim lighting. The team isn't physically present in the apartment. We work remotely using specialized equipment, but the effects of our work tonight will be concentrated in this location. Maya backed toward the door, suddenly feeling trapped. This is insane. Jordan, you can't conduct experiments in our apartment without my permission, and you definitely can't confine me to my bedroom. I'm going to call the landlord. Jordan stepped between Maya and the door, not aggressively, but clearly blocking her path. Maya, please listen to me. I know this sounds strange, but I've been monitoring the conditions in this building for weeks. Tonight's readings are unlike anything I've seen before. If you're exposed to the atmospheric changes without proper protection, it could affect your health in ways that modern medicine wouldn't be able to help. Maya felt panic starting to set in. The Jordan she'd been living with for weeks, quiet, polite, predictable, had been replaced by someone intense and controlling. Get away from the door. Jordan, right now, I'm leaving, and I'm calling the police. Jordan's expression softened slightly, but they didn't move away from the door. I can't let you leave tonight, Maya. I'm sorry, but your safety is more important than your comfort. I'll explain everything tomorrow morning when the dangerous period is over. Maya pulled out her phone to call for help, but the screen showed no signal bars despite usually having full coverage in the apartment. She tried calling 911, but the call wouldn't connect. What did you do to my phone? Jordan glanced at the handheld device, which was now beeping more rapidly. The atmospheric conditions are already beginning to affect electronic signals. Your phone will work normally again tomorrow morning. Maya felt completely helpless and terrified. The person she trusted as a roommate was now holding her prisoner in her own home. Using explanations that sounded like science fiction, she realized that all the strange behaviors and oddities she'd noticed over the past month had been leading up to this moment. Jordan walked to the kitchen and returned with bottles of water and some packaged snacks. I'm going to ask you to go to your bedroom now, Maya. I'll bring you dinner and anything else you need. I know you're frightened, but I promise you'll understand everything tomorrow morning. Maya looked at Jordan's face and saw something that made her blood run cold. Their eyes were reflecting the light in a way that human eyes shouldn't, and their movements had that unnaturally smooth quality that her friends had noticed. Maya realized that whatever Jordan was, they weren't entirely human. With no other choice, and no way to call for help, Maya slowly walked toward her bedroom, Jordan following close behind to ensure she didn't try to escape. As she reached her bedroom door, Maya turned back one more time. Who are you really, Jordan? What are you? Jordan's expression was almost sad as they replied. You'll have your answers tomorrow morning, Maya. Until then, please try to stay calm and get some rest. The next few hours are going to be unusual. Maya stepped into her bedroom, and Jordan gently but firmly closed the door behind her. She heard what sounded like a lock engaging, though her bedroom door had never had a lock before. Maya was now trapped in her own room, with no idea what her mysterious roommate was planning to do throughout the long night ahead. Maya sat on her bed, staring at the locked door in complete disbelief. She kept replaying the conversation with Jordan in her mind, trying to make sense of what had just happened. Her quiet, polite roommate had just imprisoned her in her own bedroom using explanations that sounded like they came from a science fiction movie. She tried the door handle several times, even though she'd heard the lock engage. The door wouldn't budge. Maya examined the handle closely and realized that, somehow, a locking mechanism had appeared where none had existed before. Her bedroom door had never had a lock, but now there was clearly some kind of electronic device attached to the handle. Maya pulled out her phone again, hoping the signal had returned. But the screen still showed no bars. She tried calling her friends, her family, even trying to send text messages, but nothing would go through. It was as if her phone had been completely cut off from the outside world. Despite showing that it was fully charged and supposedly connected to Wi-Fi, the electronic humming that had become familiar over the past month was now much louder and more complex. Maya could hear multiple different frequencies coming from various parts of the apartment. It sounded like several large machines were running simultaneously, creating a constant background noise that made it impossible to relax. Around 11 p.m., Maya heard voices coming from the living room. Not just Jordan's voice, but what sounded like multiple people having a serious conversation. The voices were too muffled for Maya to understand the words, but she could tell they were discussing something important. The strange thing was, she had never heard anyone else enter the apartment. Maya pressed her ear against the bedroom door, trying to make out what was being said. The voices seemed to be speaking in different languages. Some sounded familiar, like variations of English, but others were completely foreign. She heard Jordan's voice occasionally, responding to questions or giving what sounded like reports. The lights under her bedroom door began changing colors more dramatically than ever before. Maya watched as flashes of blue, green, purple, and colors she couldn't even name swept across the gap under the door. Sometimes the lights pulsed in rhythm with the electronic humming, creating an almost hypnotic pattern. Maya tried to stay calm by focusing on practical things. She had water and snacks that Jordan had provided, and her bedroom had its own small bathroom, so she wouldn't have immediate needs. But as the hours passed, the strange sounds and lights made it impossible to feel comfortable. Around midnight, Jordan knocked gently on the door. "Maya, are you okay in there? Do you need anything?" Maya rushed to the door, desperate for human contact and answers. "Jordan, please let me out. This is crazy. Just tell me what's really going on." Jordan's voice sounded different through the door, more distant and formal than usual. "I cannot explain everything right now, but the atmospheric readings are showing exactly what we predicted. You are much safer in your room during this process." "What process?" Maya demanded. "And who are all those people I hear talking? You said you worked remotely, but there are clearly other people in our apartment." There was a long pause before Jordan responded. "The voices you hear are colleagues communicating through our equipment. They are not physically present in the apartment, but we use advanced communication systems for our research." Maya didn't believe that explanation for a second. The voices sounded too clear and immediate to be coming through any kind of phone or video call system. "Jordan, I want to see what's happening out there. Just open the door for 1 minute so I can see that everything is normal." "That is not possible." "Maya, exposure to the current atmospheric conditions could cause disorientation, memory problems, or other health issues that your medical system would not be able to treat." Maya felt tears of frustration starting to form. "You're talking nonsense, Jordan. There's no such thing as atmospheric conditions that only affect certain people. You're making this up." Jordan's voice became gentler, almost sad. "I understand your frustration and fear, Maya. Tomorrow morning, when this is over, I will show you evidence of what happened tonight. You will understand why this was necessary." Maya heard Jordan's footsteps moving away from the door, leaving her alone again with the strange sounds and lights. She tried to think of ways to escape, but her bedroom window was on the 3rd floor with no fire escape. Even if she could break the window, jumping would be dangerous. As the night progressed, the sounds from the rest of the apartment became even more unusual. Maya heard what sounded like furniture being moved around, electronic equipment being assembled and disassembled, and those multiple voices having increasingly intense conversations. Sometimes she heard sounds that didn't seem possible, like rushing wind or flowing water, even though they were inside an apartment building. Around 2 a.m., Maya heard a new sound that made her heart race. It sounded like a low, rhythmic vibration coming from directly above her room. The ceiling began to emit a soft, pulsing light that seemed to move in patterns across the surface. Maya stared up at her ceiling in terror, realizing that whatever was happening involved more than just her apartment. The temperature in her room started fluctuating wildly. One moment it would be comfortably warm, and the next it would drop so suddenly that Maya could see her breath. Then it would become almost tropical, forcing her to remove layers of clothing. The temperature changes didn't seem to follow any pattern and made it impossible to get comfortable. Maya's electronics began behaving even more strangely than before. Her laptop turned on by itself and displayed screens full of symbols and numbers. That meant nothing to her. The screen would occasionally flash images that looked like maps or diagrams, but they disappeared too quickly for Maya to study them. Her phone's screen would light up randomly, showing apps she'd never seen before with names and languages she couldn't read. Around 4 a.m. Jordan checked on her again. "Maya, how are you feeling? Any dizziness, nausea, or confusion?" Maya was exhausted but too frightened to sleep. "I feel terrible, Jordan. I'm scared, I'm tired, and I want to know what you're doing to our apartment. The ceiling is glowing, my room keeps changing temperature, and my electronics are going crazy. Those are side effects of the atmospheric changes I mentioned," Jordan explained through the door. "Your body is sensitive to the fluctuations, which is exactly why you need to stay protected in your room. The symptoms will stop once our work is complete." "Your work? What kind of work creates glowing ceilings and temperature changes? And why didn't you warn me about this before tonight?" Jordan was quiet for a long moment. "We did not expect the effects to be quite this strong in your room. Our calculations showed that you would be completely protected, but it seems the energy fields are more powerful than we anticipated." Maya didn't understand half of what Jordan was saying, but she could tell that even Jordan seemed surprised by what was happening. This made her even more frightened. If Jordan didn't have complete control over whatever they were doing, there was no telling what could happen before morning. As dawn approached, Maya noticed that the sounds from the rest of the apartment were gradually becoming quieter. The electronic humming was still there, but less intense than it had been during the middle of the night. The voices she'd been hearing became less frequent, and the colored lights under her door began to fade. Maya curled up on her bed, exhausted, but unable to sleep. She watched the clock slowly approach 7 a.m., counting down the minutes until Jordan had promised her ordeal would be over. She had no idea what she would find when that door finally opened, or whether Jordan would actually keep their promise to explain everything. All Maya knew was that nothing would ever be the same between them. Whatever Jordan was hiding, whatever they had done to the apartment during the night, had changed everything. Maya realized that the person she'd been living with was not who they claimed to be, and she was about to discover just how wrong her assumptions about Jordan had been. At exactly 7 a.m., Maya heard the soft click of the electronic lock disengaging. She had been sitting by the door for the past hour, too exhausted and anxious to sleep, waiting for Jordan to keep their promise to release her. The electronic humming that had filled the apartment all night had finally stopped, and the strange lights had faded completely. Maya cautiously turned the door handle, half expecting it to still be locked. But the door opened easily, and she stepped into the hallway with trembling legs. What she saw made her gasp in shock. The apartment looked completely different from the night before. All of Jordan's mysterious electronic equipment had vanished. The living room, which Maya had heard being rearranged throughout the night, was back to its original layout. Everything appeared normal, as if the terrifying night she'd just experienced had been nothing more than a vivid nightmare. But there was something different in the air, a faint metallic smell that reminded Maya of the scent after lightning strikes during thunderstorms. The smell was subtle but definitely there, clinging to everything like invisible evidence of whatever had happened during her imprisonment. Maya found Jordan sitting in the living room, looking more human than she had ever seen them. Their usual perfect posture was gone, replaced by the slumped shoulders of someone who was truly exhausted. Their skin, which had always seemed unusually pale and perfect, now showed signs of fatigue. For the first time since Maya had known them, Jordan looked genuinely tired. "Maya," Jordan said quietly, looking up as she entered the room. "Please sit down. I owe you an explanation." Maya remained standing, her arms crossed defensively. "You owe me a lot more than an explanation, Jordan. You held me prisoner in my own home. You scared me half to death with all those sounds and lights. I want to know exactly what you did to our apartment last night." Jordan nodded slowly, as if they had expected this reaction. "You have every right to be angry with me. What I did was wrong, even though it was necessary to keep you safe. But before I explain, I need you to know that everything I'm about to tell you is the truth, even though it will sound impossible." Maya sat down on the edge of the couch, as far from Jordan as possible. "I'm listening, but this better be good, because right now, I'm thinking about calling the police and having you arrested for false imprisonment." Jordan reached into their pocket and pulled out a small device that Maya had never seen before. It looked like a cross between a smartphone and some kind of scientific instrument, with a screen that displayed symbols and numbers that meant nothing to Maya. The device seemed to be made from materials that didn't look quite like anything Maya had seen in regular electronics stores. "Maya, I'm not from this planet," Jordan said simply, holding up the device. "I am part of a research team that has been studying Earth and human behavior for the past several years. Last night was a critical data collection period that required me to use equipment that could have been harmful to humans." Maya stared at Jordan in stunned silence for several seconds before letting out a nervous laugh. "Are you serious right now? You expect me to believe that you're an alien, Jordan? That's the most ridiculous thing I've ever heard." Jordan touched the device, and its screen lit up with what looked like a three-dimensional map of their neighborhood. Maya could see their apartment building represented as a small glowing dot, surrounded by detailed information about the surrounding area. The level of detail was incredible, far beyond what any normal mapping technology could provide. "I know. It sounds impossible," Jordan continued, "but I can prove it to you. The device I'm holding contains information about Earth that your scientists won't discover for decades. I can show you weather patterns, geological data, and biological information that goes far beyond current human knowledge." Maya leaned closer to look at the device, despite her skepticism. The images on the screen were unlike anything she'd seen before. There were detailed cross-sections of the building's structure, showing pipes, electrical systems, and even the location of every person in the surrounding apartments. The technology was definitely not something that existed in any store or online catalog. "Even if that's some kind of advanced computer," Maya said, trying to find a logical explanation, "that doesn't prove you're an alien. Maybe you work for some secret government agency or tech company." Jordan set the device aside and looked directly at Maya. "Last night, my team needed to scan this entire area, using equipment that emits energy frequencies that can be dangerous to human nervous systems. That's why I had to keep you in your room, not to hurt you, but to protect you from exposure that could have caused permanent damage to your brain." Maya thought back to all the strange symptoms she'd experienced during the night. The temperature changes, the glowing ceiling, the malfunctioning electronics. "If you're really trying to protect me, why didn't you just tell me the truth from the beginning? Why lie about being a normal person looking for a place to live?" Jordan's expression became sad and guilty. "Because my assignment was to observe human behavior in natural settings. I was supposed to study how humans interact in their daily lives, what they worry about, how they make decisions. If you had known what I was, you would have acted differently, and my research would have been compromised." Maya felt a mixture of anger and hurt. "So I was just a research subject to you? Everything we've shared as roommates was fake." "No," Jordan said quickly, and for the first time. Their voice carried real emotion. "That's what makes this so complicated. Maya, I was assigned to study human behavior, but I wasn't supposed to care about my subjects. Living with you, watching you deal with work stress, seeing how kind you are to your friends, observing your daily routines, it changed something in me." Maya wasn't sure whether to believe Jordan's apparent emotional response. "How do I know you're not just studying my reactions right now? How do I know this isn't all part of some elaborate experiment?" Jordan stood up and walked to the window, looking out at the morning sky. "Because my mission is complete, Maya. Last night's data collection was the final phase of my assignment. My team will be analyzing the information we gathered, and I'll be reassigned to a different location for a new project. Maya felt a strange sense of loss at the thought of Jordan leaving, despite everything that had happened. So what happens now? Do you just disappear and leave me to wonder if any of this was real? Jordan turned back toward Maya, and she could see genuine conflict in their expression. That's what's supposed to happen. My supervisors expect me to complete my report and move on to the next assignment. But Maya, living with you has taught me things about humans that weren't in any of our research data. Like what? Like how humans can be genuinely kind to someone they barely know. Like how you worry about people you care about, even when you're dealing with your own problems. Like how you defended me to your friends, even when you noticed I was different. Jordan paused, seeming to struggle with their words. I learned that humans have something we don't fully understand. The ability to form emotional connections that go beyond logic or self-interest. Maya felt tears starting to form, though she wasn't sure if they were from fear, sadness, or something else entirely. So what are my options here, Jordan? Do I get to choose what happens next? Or do you just make that decision for me too? Jordan sat back down, this time closer to Maya. I can request that your memories of our time together be adjusted so that you remember me as a normal roommate who moved out for work reasons. You would go back to your regular life with no memory of aliens or research projects or terrifying nights locked in your bedroom. Maya considered this option. It would certainly be easier to forget everything and return to normal life. But something about the idea of having her memories altered felt wrong, like losing an important part of herself. What's the other option? She asked. You could keep your memories and continue living your life, knowing the truth about what happened. But you would have to promise never to tell anyone about my real identity or the existence of my research team. Most humans wouldn't believe you anyway, but there are some who would, and that could cause problems for both of us. Maya realized she was facing one of the biggest decisions of her life. She could choose the safe, comfortable option of forgetting everything and returning to her normal existence. Or she could choose to live with the knowledge that she had shared her home with a being from another world, forever changing her understanding of what was possible in the universe. If I choose to remember, Maya said slowly, would I ever see you again? Jordan smiled sadly. Probably not. My next assignment will likely be in a different part of the world, studying different aspects of human society. But Maya, knowing you, has changed me in ways that my supervisors will probably never understand. You've shown me that humans are far more complex and remarkable than our research indicated. Maya looked around the apartment that had been her home for years and Jordan's temporary research station for just a few months. She thought about all the small moments they'd shared, morning conversations over coffee, Jordan's curious questions about everyday activities, the peaceful coexistence that had worked so well until last night. I need some time to think about this, Maya said finally. Jordan nodded. Of course, take all the time.